Okay.
I'm sure we will have others that will join us, but, I want to be conscious of everyone's time, especially our panels. And, so we're going to begin, right away. And I want to just preface this by saying thank you so much to each of you. I know that it's your beginning days back to school, and, I'm not so far away from it that I don't remember how that was. So I'm sure you're exhausted, and we greatly appreciate your being here to share your perspectives with us. I would like you to get to know us a bit and who we are and where we're from. So I'm just going to go around the room and introduce the members of the task force. I'm Fran Rabinowitz. I am the executive director of the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents and one of the tri-chairs. Here's my tri-chair.
I'm Andy Feinstein. I'm a lawyer in private practice, and I'm involved with special education equity for kids in Connecticut. And I am one of the tri-chairs. Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Love, and I'm a school attorney from the law firm of Birch and Moses, and the third tri-chair.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Lucier, I'm with Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center, and I'm not a tri-chair. Hi, Catherine Meyer, I'm an attorney at the Center for Children's Advocacy. I direct our mental legal partnership at the Yale Child Study Center, and I mainly have practiced over the years in Fairfield County, Bridgeport, and Macon areas.
Okay, a visitor. I'm Patrice McCarthy. I'm the executive director and general counsel for the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education.
I'm Stephanie Walter. I'm a special ed teacher at CES. I'm also your CEA treasurer.
Amy Turner, Assistant Superintendent in Wallingford, and I am the president of ComCase.
Hi, Karen Honane, School Director at Benhaven School in Wallingford, also representing the Connecticut Association of Private Special Education Facilities.
Hi, Heather Tartaglia. I'm the Chief Program Officer at Crash, and I'm here representing the Rest Alliance.
Introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, Brian Klunkowitz, Special Education Division Director.
You need to go through here. We wanted to make sure we saw all our panel members on video.
See if you can get,
Kind of
see if you can get to your seat.
Yep. And online, Alicia.
Alicia Bowman, Associate Executive Director of the Connecticut Association of Schools. And I'm getting over being sick, so I'm going to keep my camera off. It's nice to see everybody.
Sally.
Hi, Sally Drew from Sacred Heart University. I am representing private teacher preparation for private schools, and I am an associate professor of teacher education, and I coordinate our special education programs.
Lisa.
Hi, Lisa Hammersley, Executive Director of the School and State Finance Project. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that works to increase the equitable distribution of state's K-12 education funding.
Susan.
Hello, everybody. I'm Susan Yankee, and I'm the chair of the Connecticut State Advisory Council for Special Education. Nice to see everybody.
Dawn, we'll wait on you a minute, okay?
Jason.
Jason, just joined us.
Jason Adler, I'm the school counselor here on behalf of Connecticut's AFT. I also happen to be on the Clinton Board of Education.
Okay, that's our special ed task force. We have some people that are missing, but generally speaking, you see we have a lot of different perspectives. So, panel members, if you would just take just a minute or two to tell us who you are, what your position is, and where you're located. I'll start with Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Gay. I'm from the Kirk Academy of Aerospace and Engineering. I've been teaching special education for 11 years. I mostly work with 12th graders and some life skills kids.
I'm Bonnie Lindsay. I taught in Norwalk for 37 years. I just retired in June. And I taught elementary special ed. I was in 2 different schools, and I unfortunately was forced out, so I'm happy to be on the committee.
Good to see you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shelley Davis. I'm a paraeducator, 33 years. I'm also the president of the Hartford Federation of Paraeducators and divisional vice president for PSRP's paraprofessionals and school-related personnel for AFT.
Rachel?
I'm Raquel Barros. I am currently a special education teacher where I serve as department lead and also compliance monitor for 2 schools. I'm from Hartford Public Schools. I am also a VP for non-certified for the Hartford Federation of Teachers. I've been teaching 20 years, all split probably between K to 12. For the past 6 years, I've been in special education. As you can tell, the accent is from Jamaica, so I'm only here for 10 years. So 10 years prior to that, I was a teacher in Jamaica.
Thank you. And Dawn?
Hi, I'm Dawn Dickow. Sorry I can't join you guys today. I recently had shoulder surgery, so I can't drive. But I am a paraeducator. I was selected the 2024 Paraeducator of the Year for the state of Connecticut. I'm a member of the Special Education Advisory Council, and I'm here to represent paraeducators.
Thank you. Thank you all sincerely, and many thanks to the members of the task force for doing so much of their time as well. One of our major findings was the shortages in special ed. Frankly, I think my co-chairs will agree, as well as members of the task force and anyone who knows education, that if you don't have the teachers, you don't have anything. If you don't have the paras, you have nothing. So how can we begin to improve or move forward with different ideas in the area of special education if we don't have the stuff we need to work with our children? So we're incredibly concerned about that, and the state reporting on the shortages this year shows it's not any better. It's quite awful, and it's awful and really horrific in our most challenged districts, the cities, and where our kids, all kids need it, but we really need it in the cities and in the rural areas, and the shortages are even more profound there. And so we want to hear your perspectives. I don't want to sit here and pretend that I know why, or any of us know the answers or to why there are these shortages. And so I would start with Bonnie and say, what do you believe are the primary reasons for the shortage of special ed educators? And I include paras and teachers, all of the educators in that.
So I wrote a few things down. A lot of people are hired, and once they're hired, they realize what the job is, and they find it very difficult. And you find a lot of people work for a month or two, and then they leave because they can't hack it. There is no training when they enter the district. They give them their little spiel at the central office, but once you get into the school, unless you have a good relationship with the special ed teacher or somebody else, your colleagues don't help you. I think that's huge, because you're coming in, you're just out of college usually, and you don't know the ropes the way everybody else in the school knows, and you're like lost. I've seen it over and over again. There's also a lot of the atmosphere in the school I was in was very adversarial. They were constantly in the room checking on people, and making them feel uncomfortable. So I think that, the supervisors and the administrators in the buildings also have to realize these people are just out of college. They're fresh, they're green, so to speak. And my last point was a lot of parents, once you get to a PPT meeting, a lot of the parents are very disrespectful. You know, they just think that they own the schools and they own everything. And they treat you like you don't know anything. And I've had a lot of instances where parents have come in and said, I want my child to have 6 hours a day of special ed, and it's just not realistic. So those are some of the reasons that, you know, we're having trouble keeping people.
Okay. Elizabeth, you wanna add something?
Sure. I do agree with you, on the training piece. I feel like once you get into the classroom, you realize you need more and more support, especially the new teachers coming out of college. I think they need more than just a team mentor. They need someone that has built-in time to meet with these new special ed teachers during the day that's built into their schedules as duties. I believe that one of the reasons that special ed teachers are leaving is there's not enough time during the school day to complete all the mandated tasks. In the prep time that we're given. You have testing, evaluations, accountability logs, billing, report writing, IEP writing, progress reports, et cetera, on top of our teaching duties, on top of the duties that are given to us, like bathroom duty and hallway duty. There's not enough time in the day to complete all these tasks, which can lead to frustration, can lead to burnout. I also think that there's sometimes a lack of understanding of what the roles and responsibilities are of a special educator. I feel like sometimes myself and my colleagues spend a lot of our time explaining what the role is, explaining what special education is, how best to support our students. So I think that can also lead to frustration.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And
So I've spoken to a lot of colleagues, especially paraeducators around the state, not just paras, but educators in general. The number one reason is educators and paraeducators are not being paid for what they do. They're just simply not being paid for the extensive and specialized work they do in special ed. And so due to the shortage, paraeducators are given more responsibility. So we have kids that should have an IEP that says they should have an adult. Well, now that child has to share that adult with maybe 3 or 4 other paras. I've been trying to get, what is a small group? What does that even mean? You can't have a para with 4 kids, 2 which are runners, 1 in a wheelchair, and expect there not to be issues. Also, the extensive workload poses safety issues. And there's attention that's needed. Also, work-life balance for special education is poor due to burnout. And we don't do enough for mental health. We're provided to the educators and attract new ones. And the lack of ongoing professional development, opportunities and career advancement pathways are deterrents for people entering or staying. We have paraeducators that have been here for 25, 30 years. They are making $28,000, $29,000. They can't switch to become behavior techs or anything else. And a lot of them have their degrees, right? Because they want us to stay where we are. So we're not given those same opportunities. And so right now after the pandemic, we have people that can just go other places and work, or we have a lot of people that are retiring. We've seen more retirees for paraeducators in the last 3 years. And I've been the president for the last 15 than ever before. And it's due to the respect and the pay. And that's basically it. There's no clear career paths that can help or are helping to address these issues. And so people aren't getting the respect or dignity, and they're just tired. That's it, they're just tired. A lot of our parents work 3 and 4 jobs. Why? It's poverty money, what they're making. And they're here because they care about our kids. They care. A lot of them live in the city. These are the kids they see in the neighborhood. And it's just, I don't know, this is the worst I've ever seen it.
I just want to add, I agree with the pay because teachers that I've spoken to that have left, like one of the number one reasons is pay. Another is differentiating between a classroom teacher and that of a special education teacher. Because most of the times we're doing the same things that a general ed teacher is doing. Even though a child per se may have 2 times 45 minutes, we are, because of a contract, and I would say not trusting too, because we have to present a schedule that is probably masked within another like master schedule. And we're expected to be in those rooms and listed as co-teachers when probably my students have already done their hours from Tuesday. And then that prevents me from doing my other responsibilities because it creates that codependency on the classroom teacher with the expectation that you're here. Sometimes it creates problem as well with those classroom teachers. And I think too, one of the things as special education, I know a lot of people, we feel that this carries like more weight because of the legal implications and the mandates that are associated with special education. And I think some of the things that we see or that happens within our school, some of us try to withdraw ourselves from that situation to say, you know what, if I'm gonna lose this, I prefer to lose it on my own, but nobody wants to have certain things associated with themselves. So we have like those things, like again, like the disrespect, like the training, because I learned, you know, I had a good team at Hartford High, but I've not been given like any training where special ed is concerned, coming from another country, doing something like different. So I had to learn everything like on my own. So I feel like those were some of the reasons we were overworked, not doing our jobs, doing everything as accepting our jobs. And so I think that these are some of the things that compound us not wanting to stay in special ed.
So, Shelley just said that she's never seen it this bad. And the data tends to support that shortages are as bad as they've ever been. So what's changed? What's changed that made things worse? You know, the pay's always been an issue. The work requirements have always been an issue. What's changed that's made things worse? Anyway.
I think one of the things that has probably led to the change, like I know, like once upon a time, teachers were allowed to make their own schedule. But I think what has compounded the interest is that teachers started leaving, right? We needed a placeholder. And a placeholder is going to be, for example, we're in all co-teaching classes with the exception of our resource where you probably need to be only in one. But we're going to be the second person that stays in that room. They don't have to pay somebody else within that room if that teacher is absent, because I now become the second body within that room. And a part of that too is because of other areas like have left, teacher shortage become like an overall thing, or teacher absenteeism, I want to say, like in the case specifically if you have, and teachers are absent on a day, I get to be, even though I'm not a content teacher, I'm going to be responsible for all the classes that I push in with this teacher. So that is one of like the change. I feel like for an answer to teacher absenteeism is creating co-taught classes that are not necessarily needed or that are not true co-taught classes. And then with that, we have, you know, all these things because now I'm overworking because I'm not going to let the kids sit in class and not do anything. So I'm doing a job of both the general ed teacher and a special ed teacher. So I think the teacher absenteeism, to answer that question or to deal with that issue of absenteeism, we were placed as placeholders in classes that we don't need to be because of that was probably like the solution. So we're having solutions for problems that are not necessarily workable and feasible or thought through, for wanting of a better word, and then it compounds, it makes other issues like worse.
And Dawn? Yes, Dawn.
A lot of the things that I had written down were addressed. Definitely the pay. When I asked around at the school that I work at, you know, what do you think is the number one reason why? And the first answer they all gave me was the pay. And it wasn't just the pay, it was the pay because of something else that followed that. So in recent times, we're getting more students that are put in the special education, but they are more of a behavior. So we get hit and we get kicked and scratched and spit at and shoved. And we feel that, you know, because we are making you know, a dollar more than somebody that just came in and we've been working there for 20 years and we're getting beat up every day. It's just not worth it anymore. And they retire. If they've been there for a while, they leave because they ask for transfers that don't happen. They think, well, maybe I'll go to another school system, but then they start at the bottom rung of the pay schedule. So they would rather go and find something else to do as a career than stay in education. And the thing about, one thing that I know that is when this started happening, I can't, you know, we can't put I can't put a finger on, you know, the exact date, but unfortunately, the parents are more involved in our classrooms, even though they're not in our classrooms. So when something goes wrong at school, you know, a student will tell their parent, who then posts it on social media. And that leaves the administrator scrambling to find out what the problem was. We had this very specific thing happen last year where we had a student that was needed a little bit more firm handling, but it was not by any means mean or demeaning to the child. That was how he, you know, he needed to be handled. And a student went home and told his parents, who immediately posted it on Facebook, and the para was immediately transferred, and she didn't return this year. So whether she was let go or whether she left, but the thing is that the parents are in the classroom so much, and it's handcuffed the administrators to have to make sure that they are watching everything that's going on in our classrooms. That's why, you know, you were saying earlier that these new teachers, they're right on top of them. There's always somebody watching them. It's a feeling that has to happen because we feel like the parents are always watching us, unfortunately.
So,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go.
So there are a lot of trends, but the noticeable one for me that I see is the lack of respect and appreciation for people in this field, for people that work with our special needs kids. The more effort it seems that educators put in, the more that's expected without appropriate recognition or compensation. With alternative employment opportunities, offering similar pay or more pay, but with fewer responsibilities and risk, this is where people are going. It's a lot of risk now, and people don't want to lose their jobs with the DCF cases we have, with kids recording stuff, with social media, and just we have some children that have literally set up teachers for parents because they don't like them. They don't want to do the work. We also have the administrative burden on educators, including paperwork and compliance requirements. It has increased, taking time away from direct student interaction. Both of my parents, my mother and my father, were principals in the city of Hartford. I know what it looks like when you have a full dedicated staff and you have the resources you need. I know what that education looks like. We don't have the resources anymore. We have flat funding. Every year, it's less and less of what we can get, what you can have. And when you're bare bones, there's nothing left. There's also a shift in the diversity and complexity of the student needs, requiring more specialized training, which parents I know aren't getting the training they need. We're just hiring people. And some schools will tell you, we just need a warm body. To me, that's really scary. We need more than that. We need people that understand our special needs kids. We need people that have the training. And if you don't have good teachers, and if you don't have parents in the classroom, we're not going to get any better where we are. And I think that's what has changed. We just have lowered our standards. People are leaving because they don't have to just tolerate this anymore. And who's really not getting what they need are our children. And that's the scary part of this. So those are noticeable changes that I've seen happening.
Can I open it up to the panel, this task force? Is there any questions that you want to ask or comments?
Hi, this is Susan. I had a quick question. Dawn, you were saying parents were posting about other students on social media. Do parents get guidelines because of FERPA about social media? Does anyone?
Well, the incident that I was speaking of was a general education student noticed how he thought the para was being mean. And so he went home and told his mom, who then posted it on social media. That mom even mentioned the student's name. And it was just ridiculous that she said his name. I was shocked. And so my reaction being shocked, you can imagine what the administration's reaction was. They were scrambling to fix this situation in any way that they could. So they reassigned the para. And like I said, it was the way that this para was working with this student. He was showing growth, he was showing improvement, but that didn't matter. What mattered was what was on a Facebook page, and she was reassigned. And like I said, I don't even know what happened to her. If she left, if she quit, or if they fired her, I have no idea.
And may I just add to the trend too? I think one of the things we're taught as special education teachers is that I remember one of the first things I learned was once students are mild or probably moderate, they can be exited from special education. And before I moved over to special ed, I probably been one teacher before, seeing her exit like 2 kids. I've done it 5 years, and last year was the first time since I had students, I was able to exit them from special education. So some of our students have mild, SLD, those mild learning disability, and they're SLD from 2nd grade, and they come to us at high school, and they leave high school when, these are things that can be corrected. So the question would have to be like, what is happening, when everybody has an IEP, what is happening in our elementary schools probably, because students are coming to us with 1 times 30 minutes, just like transition, like they just did a trial evaluation. And they come to me like, why do they have 1 times 30 minutes or 1 times 40 minutes? Because the parents said they wanted them to get they want them to have like an IEP. So I see less and less kids being exited from special education, and I never knew that special ed is it's a long-term like placeholder like for the kids. So I don't know in terms of like instruction, what is happening in our classrooms, but the trend is I'm seeing fewer kids being exited from special education. And the fewer, and in terms of mild and moderate disability, because, if we are providing the necessary supports and structures like that are in place in classrooms, we can get these kids exited. Or these kids from 2nd grade to when they end with us have disabilities, and I just don't understand why either. So that's.
Bonnie, you were going to-
So I noticed over the many years that I've been teaching, there are many, many more autistic children in the school now, where years ago, a lot of these children were outplaced. Now they brought them all back into the schools, and, it could be because of the advocates and the lawyers, but they're back in the school, they have no support, and the teachers don't have any training on, how to deal with some of these kids. I know there's a lot of behavior kids in school, and so what they do is they'll assign a para. If the para is not working out well with them, they'll change the para without giving the para training in how to deal with these children. So that I think is a huge, the whole thing about training the paras. Para may be hired, then they move them to somebody else. The other thing I notice is we've had different IEP programs. We've used IEP Direct, we've used now CT SEDS. We don't get any training. It's almost like on the job, like ask your colleague. Oh, well, your colleague will tell you. We've asked for them I know we have videos. We don't have time to watch videos, but the schools need more time to work on this kind of stuff. And my last point is that a lot of the parents, this is another change that's come about in the years. Parents are asking for evaluations. We evaluate the child does not qualify, and the parents get a lawyer or an advocate, and they come in with a report from an outside agency, which says now they qualify. So the caseloads are just ridiculous. There are too many kids that possibly don't need special ed that are in special ed. So go ahead.
Thank you.
I do agree with a lot of what the panelists said. Like I said earlier, I think there are more responsibilities and duties put on special educators, especially as we've gone through the years. With less special educators in the profession right now, that means we have higher caseloads, which is a lot more pressure on everyone, which leads to more burnout, which leads to a lot of pressure on special educators, which leads to them leaving the profession. And I think something that would be great is to have more professional development that's relevant, give us time to learn the new systems when new things come out from the state and things like that, so that we don't feel as much pressure when we're trying to learn as we're going.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think we've probably already hit upon specific challenges in your day-to-day duties. How can we change this picture?
I have a couple challenges.
We have more challenges.
Well,
Please.
there's no time for teachers to collaborate with regular ed teachers, special ed teachers and regular ed, yet they want us to push in. So now we're pushing in, now we are very high paid parents, pushing into a classroom because we've had no training on, we don't even know sometimes what the teacher's teaching that when the child is in the room. So that is a real concern. And large caseloads are, oh my goodness. That is like the #1 complaint of what the challenges are. And also, when I started teaching special ed, we actually had paras that did all our paperwork. They sent out the notices, they called the parents, they did all this paperwork. That has all been taken away. And so now the special ed teachers are responsible for creating the meetings, putting them on the calendar, setting up the meetings, getting everybody together. I mean, it takes a lot of time to do all that. It may not sound like it takes a lot of time, but
yes,
it takes a lot. So added duties are, you know, all the paperwork.
I also think like building in time to work with our paraeducators too. They're part of our team, but we often don't get that built-in time to actually work with our paraeducators. Like they're part of the students team, but we often just get to see them like in the hallway or quickly. There's no built-in time to actually work with them to help build that students program together as a team.
So I just want to add on that. So special education educators often feel, and I'm talking about paraeducators, feel marginalized and unrecognized, not considering, and we're not considered members of the classroom team. And we used to be classroom paras, and that's why we did all that work. Now, you don't have classroom paras, you have adult support paras and special education paras. So we have inexperienced teachers that may lack classroom management skills, and they rely on paraeducators heavily. And we're not treated as partners. We're just, this is what you need to do. That's what you need to do. The current state of public education is distressing, and the lack of resources and funding means that student needs are not being adequately met. But I do have 2 ideas. I think promoting a more inclusive and collaborative team environment where special educators are valued and their insights are integrated into overall teaching strategies that can improve job satisfaction. I also believe that the physical and emotional demands on the job can be overwhelming. Providing better support systems, including data to counseling and sufficient breaks during the day, might mitigate these challenges. Right now, teachers, parents, if you don't have time to go to the restroom, you don't have time to do anything. You just go from one space to the other. And I think meetings like this are great. I think if you talk to the people that do the work every day on a daily basis and actually listen, we can really come up with a plan that can get us back on track. Thank you.
Well, that's our job. We're supposed to come up with recommendations by January 1st, specific legislative recommendations. I think I heard pay is one of those. No question about that. What else? What else we do?
I can tell you, all the districts in Connecticut are not the same. That everybody's doing something. If you go from Norwalk to Westport, it's a totally different program there. And from Norwalk to Darien, totally different, Norwalk to New Canaan. I mean, the districts are not all regulated to do, you know, the same, like the special ed teachers may have smaller caseloads in Darien or in Westport than they do in Norwalk. And the Norwalk or Westport or Darien, maybe they have extra paras that we don't have, you know, it's just not equal across the state. You know, and I understand that some districts are larger than other districts, but there should be some equality.
We're acutely aware of the
Okay.
unequal funding between districts.
And I can go back to the funding too, because one of the struggles I probably tried 4 times since the beginning of the school year, because it's a constant need to advocate for the kids. So what I'm finding is that we have ID students that are placed in the general classroom, and that's not the least restricted environment for them. Some teachers will say I don't, because I find like this is not where they should be, but we fight for outplacements. And one of the bigger, we always hear, we don't have money for that, we don't have money for that, we don't have money for that. But a student who is ID, who is not accessing the curriculum, should not be in general ed classroom doing 3 resources with our 4 resource class with 4 different teachers as a solution to handle the problem that the students cannot be outplaced because of funding. So if it's funding that is needed for outplacements, we're having far fewer, and we're fighting for adequate placement for our kids, because we currently have students within our classroom that we know should not be there. And we're just doing something supplemental that's not necessarily working either. So funding, I think, is one of the biggest things, because we cannot get outplacements without funding.
I've heard the word respect used a lot. And issues of power educators not being respected, of special ed teachers not being respected by general ed teachers, of educators not being respected by parents. I've heard all of that. Is there anything we can do about that?
I believe there is, and the lack of respect, when I was talking about it, didn't come from parents. It's from administrators, it's from teachers, it's from inside the profession. There are so many classrooms where paras are just called the para. They're not called by their name. I'll just tell you one incident where one of the teachers asked another teacher, well, can you send your para over to do X, Y, and Z for me? And my issue was, why couldn't you ask that adult yourself? Like, what are we doing? So when I talk about respect, that's what I mean. But I think tapping into reserve funds and increasing investment in education is number one. I think raising the wages of educators and paraeducators is there. But we need to develop mentorship programs where veteran special education teachers can guide and support new educators and help in retention and provide a smoother transition into the profession. We don't have that. We need to launch public awareness campaigns to raise awareness about the critical role of special education and the rewards of working in this field. And I don't think we do that enough. How this can help attract individuals. And we need to build stronger relationships with the community and parents, so we don't have these issues where the parents are coming in attacking the teachers. This can include volunteer programs and parental involvement in schools. And I remember, you know, when my mother and father were principals, parents were allowed to come into the schools. That's where you got a lot of the paraeducators from, that were parents that didn't have a job and they volunteered. And so when you involve the community, you get a different outlook. Right now, we have excluded the community. We have excluded time to talk and to figure out what we're doing together. I think going back to basics of the things that work, time has changed, but respect and dignity and certain things don't ever change. And we just don't do that now in the profession.
But I think it comes from the top. I honestly believe it comes from the administrator in the building. Because I was in another building and we were like a family and we all respected each other. And the building that I just left, nobody respected anybody. Everybody it was like cutthroat. And it all came from the top. It was because of the principal. So I think, you know, it's got to start with the administrators and then it can just kind of trickle down.
This isn't one of the questions on the, that we gave you ahead of time, but the, do any of you want to address in terms of training and preparation, the role of the teacher preparation programs in preparing you to enter the classroom and undertake these responsibilities?
I do think that there needs to be some changes at the colleges and university level, especially when it comes to understanding what the responsibilities are with case management. I don't think that really is reviewed at that level, at least it wasn't when I was in the program. You know, we learned how to write an IEP, but not necessarily all of the other paperwork and different responsibilities that goes along with it. I think more needs to be done to understand what the true role of a special educator is. And again, with those mentorship programs and
Yeah.
coaching, I think it really does help at the beginning, because it is such an overwhelming job when you walk in. Like, I was really lucky to have a veteran teacher that took me under her wing to help me, but that wasn't her job. That wasn't because she was a team mentor. She just did it to help me. But I think that's needed for all special educators.
I also had a veteran teacher that helped me through my years. And I remember the first year I was teaching, I was like, I didn't learn any of this in college. You know, what I learned in college was not what's real in real life. So,
And do the teacher preparation programs address the sort of the role that the special education teacher has with respect to supervising and or training paraprofessionals that work with them in their classrooms?
No.
I think they touch on it, but they don't, you know, they'll say, you know, you'll have a paraprofessional in your room. But, you know, depending on their role, it's the training, you know, when the paraprofessionals come into the school, they need training then.
And it's not so much the teachers, and that seems to be a misgiven that teachers supervise the paras. They don't, but we assist them and we work with them. And I think that's part of the misconception right there.
Right.
When you hire paraeducators, what they need to do is have them follow a veteran paraeducator before they're even allowed to be hired. We're hiring people that have no, let me just be, that have no idea of what it is to work with children, at least less special education children that have needs, that have IEPs. Nobody goes over IEP with them. They're thrown in, and this is why we have high turnover, because they just expected to work with the child. Nobody told them the child was going to have special needs, that they didn't tell them what the child needed. And this is why we have injury. This is why we have things, because it wasn't thought out. If we go back to think those things out, and it starts with resources and training, just resources and training.
I think time is a resource, and I think that is, I'm just guessing from what you're saying. I mean, none of you are, you're saying there's a lot of paperwork, but you're not saying we can do away with that paperwork. I think you're saying it's the time to work on that paperwork that isn't there. And I very much know and understand, but I'd love to hear more about it. The time of collaboration with the regular ed teacher, especially if you're co-teaching. One of the things I know about co-teaching is you just don't put somebody in a room and say, co-teach. There's a lot of training involved in co-teaching. And so I'd like to hear more about that. And someone said early on, you know, I'm paired with or the new teacher gets a team mentor, somebody to help them with team. Helping with team, I think, is different from helping in the classroom. Could you just talk about that? Because I could see that becoming a recommendation that is something realistic that we could move on.
Maybe just to add with I've not been trained as a special education teacher here. I just did my master's, and it was from a Florida-based university. So it was very much different because I was not, and I know like the training. However, like I have had student teachers, and let's say UHeart, they had a shorter time with me in comparison to UConn, because UConn has a residency program. You're actually with me like for the year. They start doing like 2 days like first, then they do coverage, and then they turn over like by January until the rest of the year. So they had like, you know, a little more time to observe with me, which leads me back to the team training. I have my teacher, and I know my responsibility as being team trained, because team training help you with having cooperating teachers as well. However, there was no difference for the level of team, right? So I would have needed like, okay, I'm a veteran teacher, so I probably knew what is important for my student teacher to know, because she was in PPTs with me. She was helping me to write. She was going to class. She was doing her own thing and stuff like that. Like that's what, but I did that off the fact that I know that is what they needed. but these were not components within the team, like teaching for, if you're gonna do, corporate team teacher, like, it's not there, like, within the team, yet some overall stuff, but like, you would have needed, you know, if you're gonna be team and team two, like, special education teachers, like, have it be distinct, like, between just like a general like, approach, because the needs of a content teacher is very different from that of a general ed teacher. Like the needs are different, like within the school. And I catered my, you know, try to give my teachers like the 3 years what they needed, but that was not necessarily the training that I got from team. Like I had to renew my stuff, but okay, doing something because it's just basically regurgitation to try to get it like done. But it's two different, like having like a social studies teacher as a mentor for that. It was two different levels of, like, you know, it needed to be differentiated because what a special education teacher needs is different from what a content teacher like needs. So that was not like done like in the team training.
Dawn, I don't want to ignore you up there. Anything you want to add?
I'll add from my own experience is that there is a lack of training. I remember being that new para who had no idea what she was getting into. The only training that I got, and I use that term loosely, is from a fellow para who said, yeah, the kid that they gave you is like impossible. He'll never listen to you. And so in my head, I was already fighting an uphill battle. Unfortunately, I think that with paras in particular, like we value the training that we get, but there are many in our unit that don't want to take more time to do that. They don't want to come in an extra day at the beginning of the school year to get that training. So we're kind of, but we have half the unit that really wants the training, and then the other half is just there just to come in and do the job, and that's it. They don't really put in the extra effort, and that's something that frustrates me as a para because I would love to have more training. But whenever we're offered an extra day here or there, you know, to come in on election day or something like that, it gets turned down. The unit votes it down. So, and I think that has a lot to do with the feeling of not being respected. It all goes back to that kind of feeling that, well, you know, you're just paras, and that they feel that they're not appreciated. So why would I bother to come in for those extra days for training?
So I was a para for 10 years at CES, and then I became a teacher. I've been there for 30 years. So I know both sides of that coin, right? And I have 2 paras in my classroom all the time, a special ed teacher for 18 through 22-year transition kids. What would make it more, as somebody who went through programs through Southern, who got more training, got my education, got my certification, what would make, like, the unsung heroes that the paras are, help to become the next level special ed teacher, right? Well, how do we get that, like, do you have any ideas of how to move that forward? Because literally it's an untapped resource. And I'm hearing that you're not respected, that you want more. How do we move that needle forward to get, what do you need? Like, what would make that more lucrative to get, you know, myself and Elizabeth, you guys into being a teacher, right? We're looking for teachers. We have paras that are, you guys sound like love your job, you guys are passionate about it. How do we move that forward? Or like, because we're looking for things to do next in the legislature.
So, with that question, I'll answer you. We have the Relay program, and there have been programs to get paras from being a para to a teacher. And somewhere those programs went away, but we have paras now who want to do that, that try to do that. Our district isn't paying for that. I have one para now that's actually in the relay program, and they don't want to give her time on Monday to do her hours, which was part of the commitment they made to her a year ago. So it's not that parents don't want to do that. The problem is, especially for parents that have been here 15, 20 years that have degrees, right? And can go to the next level. They don't want to lose their job, especially by being a new teacher. If you're talking about layoffs, they're going to be the first ones to leave. So if I'm already invested 10 or 15 years in, I'm vested, right? I'm not going to put myself on the line for that. But to answer your question, if we could come up with a program that would do that for them or pay them while they're doing that, you would have more teachers. And I think that would be retention, because these are people that are already in the room, that are basically already doing the work. They just don't have the title, right? I think that's doable, but that's something, you know, we get different superintendents and different things come in, and everything you were working on goes away and you start all over again. That's what life has been in Hartford Public Schools. Every time we get somebody different, everything changes. And so if we could come up with a program across the board that would do that, I have people right now that are willing to do
So
that.
did you ever hear of the teacher residency program?
We have.
Okay, so that's my understanding is one of the ways. I know, I think Rec is part of that as well. I know we're doing the special ed component right now. Teacher reimbursement or staff reimbursement in contracts. I don't know if any of you guys have that. Our school, you get reimbursed for a whole class now, which is actually helping, you know, provide that. So I don't know. Those are some options that I know you might want to look through contracts. I don't know if you guys have any, those are ideas that I have in my head myself. I'm just trying to get you guys' opinions and different.
So just to piggyback on that, we do have reimbursement, but here's the thing, if you're making $28,000 and it doesn't matter if you have a degree, $300, $600 for a course, for you to put that up and have to wait to get it back is not a reality right now for the paraeducators. It's not.
So while I'm thoroughly in support of career advancement opportunities for parents, we still have a massive shortage of parents. What do we do to bring in more parents?
You pay them more money. It's really
Simple as that?
as simple as that, money and healthcare. Those two things right there would make a big difference. The comptroller did help us out because we went to HSA, to that high deductible. He came up with a stipend because we were gonna lose parents. If you can't afford to go to the doctor, you can't afford to take your kids, what's the purpose? And that was one of the reasons why 30 years ago, parents became parents, because you had good insurance. So you pay them a living wage and you give them affordable health care. Those two things right there would be an ultimate change.
I have one question that, because it's still, is circulating in my head. I was very surprised on the task force to learn that, special ed teachers, paras, feel less respected than classroom teachers. And could you say a little bit about that? Because it's foreign to me. I mean, I was a classroom elementary teacher and administrator, superintendent. I always held all my teachers, but especially my special ed, because I felt that they were so well trained and so on. So it was news to me. Do you see
Well,
that?
I do. So, and because I'm with the special ed teachers and the paras, a lot of our special ed teachers don't have their own rooms. You know, they come in and they do certain things. So they've actually taken on a certain role like a paraeducator, where nothing really belongs to you. You bring your resources in and you do what you need to do. I think the biggest problem right now is because we've had a shift of, you know, the teachers that have been here, like you, Bonnie, that have retired. So now we have new people coming in that are straight out of college that have no idea of what those relationships mean. And I don't know, so the respect part could be one of two things, either because they look down on what we do and our children, that's one. Or number two is that they don't know what it is about our children or what they need to do. And so that's just their way of dealing with it. It's either one or the second, but the bottom line is special ed teachers are treated just like parents, more or less. They just don't get that respect. And in some of the schools, they don't even call them by name. It's like, well, the sped ed teacher. Sped ed and paras are the ones that don't have a name.
I think we're gonna draw this to a close, but I really want to ask one final question. Tell me what you love about your job.
Oh, my God, the kids. Oh, I miss them so much. You can ask my husband every day. I wish I was there. I miss the kids. That's it. That's it. That's the only thing I like about it. And I like it. I had a kid come up to me in the grocery store and said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "No, I don't." And he said, "You taught me how to read." That was like, oh my God.
You know, it's all about just being able to do for children and
Yep.
giving them that you're the greatest, that you have whatever it takes and you can do whatever you want. You know, I've been in the RISE programs, special ed, and we had kids that were labeled because of their behaviors, not because of anything else. And I went to pick up a prescription from my aunt in Glastonbury, where I do not live, at CVS. And this guy said, "Miss Davis, do you remember me?" And I'm looking at this grown man and I'm like, "Who this is?" And he said, "You had me at Buckley. You told me I had greatness and I never forgot that."
Yeah.
And so for me, just for every now and then, if you hear those things, it means the world to know that you've had an impact on students that otherwise wouldn't end up where they are.
Yep. And I bet every one of you can remember a teacher that made an impact on you.
I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you all for giving your time and giving us perspective. And hopefully you're going to see some significant recommendations coming from this group that will, you know, significant but realistic, that will move forward to the legislature and have an impact on the profession, especially in the area of special ed. So I thank you very much, and as doing.
Right, and this
Vice chairs.
not the end. If you know, if you come up with, if you think of something
Yep.
as a proposal, get it to us. We'll just take a look at it.
We will. And I think we all, we just all appreciate hearing the perspectives, and we wish you all a wonderful school year.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Can we take a maybe a 10-minute break, and come back, because CEA is going to, share the summary and survey. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Come here, Dewey.
something out, Amy, and they jumped.
Okay.
Lesson learned.
Okay, we're back in session. And we have David Long with us from, he's a researcher with CEA, and they, CEA conducted a special education survey about a month and a half ago. He is going to summarize it. I sent it to you as soon as I got it electronically. I have some paper copies if you want them. And David will go over it with us.
I would love one.
Okay.
Thank you. Should I start now, or is everyone ready?
Sure, please, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present the CEA's research. Thank you, Chairs Fran Rabinovich, Andy Feinstein, and Amy Turner. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to present their work. Just for my background, I am a senior research scientist at NWA and formerly a research scientist at NEAC School of Education at UConn. But this is all my independent consulting work, so just my views alone. So I just wanted to share what the findings from the CEA's survey they did from about the 8th of August to the 20th of August of this year. They sent out emails to educators throughout the state and focusing on special education. They received responses from special education educators. They received responses from 1,404 certified special education teachers and administrators, 653 certified special services providers such as social workers, psychologists, counselors, from about 164 school districts and charter districts. This is when you compare that to the number of special education educators in the state, that's a response rate of about 23%, and about 81% of school districts and charter districts are included among these respondents. And this includes responses from low-income urban districts such as Hartford and Bridgeport, middle-sized cities like Meriden, Middletown, and wealthy communities such as Greenwich and Avon. So it covers the whole state and quite representative. With respect to the respondents themselves, there's a range of experiences, about 41% or 20 plus years of education experience, 12% 0 to 5 years, 15% 6 to 10 years, 32% 11 to 20 years, and grade level also a broad range. So I just want to give you an overview of sort of our representative sample that the CEA was able to gather. Now I would like to turn to the discussing the views of special education educators about working conditions. The CEA started off the survey with a question asking, generally speaking, how satisfied are you with current working conditions facing special education educators like you in your school district? 50% of special education educators reported feeling somewhat or very dissatisfied with the current working conditions facing the educators in the special education educators in their district. And in addition to asking these sort of closed-ended questions, we ended the survey with a variety of open-ended questions. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to highlight some of the teachers' voices as well to give some additional sort of depth to the sort of big picture perspective that the survey shows. So there were some positive and a wide variety of negative views about sort of working conditions. From the positive side, we had an educator sort of mention that coming from a Midwestern state, to work in Connecticut, there are a ton of great things going on for special education in the state, and thank you for pushing it to be even better. And then from the negative view, among the 493 open-ended responses, about 470 or more had some sort of negative concerns about special education, the quality of work consisting of concerns about paperwork, the burden of high caseloads, the lack of paraprofessionals, the challenging student behavior, and the need for higher salaries. So you can see here some of the quotes as well in front of you. But for example, one noted that we need incentives for teachers to want to go into special education, and the paperwork is overwhelming. This theme about paperwork came up over and over again in the survey. I can go over in more detail some of the qualitative findings later as we have time. We asked the educators about their views about what are there currently job openings for certified special education educators in your building. 48% said yes, 19% were unsure, they didn't know, and 33% said no. Among these respondents, 21% of respondents said that there's 30%, there's more than 30% of the positions in district in the school had openings. Next, the CEA asked about educators' views on the causes of the special education workforce shortage. Specifically, they asked, which of the following do you think are contributing to the shortage of special education educators in your school district or in the state? And the most common response was among 78% who checked all of the above said paperwork and administrative burdens. 70% said caseloads. 70% said burnout. 60% said insufficient paraeducator staffing. And 59% said too many adverse student behaviors. And you can see the others that were somewhat less than that. The CA also did a follow-up question. Among all of these, which one do you think is most important out of everything? 22% said the most important cause was paperwork and administrative burden, followed by 70% said burnout, 16% said caseload size. Next, they were asked, educators were asked, what do you believe could be done to help encourage more aspiring educators to pursue a special education teaching endorsement? And among those, and when they asked the question, select all that apply, 88% said addressing the conditions in special education, among those conditions that I just mentioned earlier. 43% said tuition or some other financial incentives would help address the shortage, would encourage more individuals to pursue special education teaching endorsements. 23% said job shadowing, and 8% said more information and marketing materials promoting special education as a teaching career. Educators, by large margin, view that improving teaching working conditions would be the best way to increase the special education workforce. With respect to the open-ended responses to this question, we had a question about sort of a large majority of the open-ended responses focused on increased salary. Arguing said you need to pay teachers more to make it more competitive with other jobs. Another educator said higher salary, you'll get a lot more interest in the position. And there's also a fair amount of discouragement as well. One going so far as to say, I would not recommend this field to anyone. The next was a question about, do educators have sufficient time or resources to do their job? We asked, the CA asked, are you provided with sufficient time that you need to carry out all of your duties as a special education teacher? 85% of respondents said no. The CA asked, are you provided with sufficient resources you need to carry out all of your students' IEPs? 56% said no. Educators stated that they, in their qualitative responses, wide variety of responses about how they did not have adequate paraprofessionals and too little time. As one respondent said, the lack of education paras and bilingual education, special education teachers make it difficult to support students the way they should be supported. Resource class sizes of 15 to 18 make it difficult to differentiate and provide individualized instruction. And then goes on to other additional concerns. And then noting that on top of that, training and implementing new curriculum software only adds to the burden. It is tough. Educators said in multiple ways that there is not enough time to do their jobs. Districts and administrators, another educator said, districts and administrators need to understand that special ed teachers are working outside of contract hours daily. We are teaching all day and our planning time is used to plan for the most challenging students. There's no dedicated time to test, write reports, write IEPs, etc. This is all done at home. Caseload numbers are the first problem, leading to burnout from working nonstop. In addition, there was a fair number of concerns about the CT SEDS as well, in addition to high caseloads, working conditions, and salaries. But I want to highlight some of the items on the last question, some of the quotes, because a number of the teachers a large portion of them were very proud of their job as special educators, the love of the students, the love of the field, and were concerned about the field in overall in Connecticut. So many educators share their many years of experience, highlighting their love for the profession of their students. They noted the many challenges, and a couple of comments provided positive examples of places where the districts were providing adequate support. For example, a teacher said, "I've been a special educator since 1982. I love the students, parents, and my role as an interventionist and mentor. However, special education is a disrespected and under-supported career. There's no honor in having this career. It's disparaged at an admin level, and the current trend of coaches helping teachers in classes has replaced solid intervention and direct instruction for students who require it. It's disheartening to not be respected, particularly with 5E state rollouts of the new IEP documentation system, and now my district provided little to no guidance. It was learned as we go. Legally, this was frightening and unnecessary." Another educator said, "As a 36+ year special educator who would have loved to complete 40 years, I am at a loss. We have lowered student expectations both behaviorally and academically, been required to use the 50% grading rule for all assignments and all students, and continue to be asked to do more with less. This will be my final year, as I can't professionally, morally, or ethically support the direction education is going post-COVID." And then last, an educator noted, "I've worked as a special education teacher in 3 different public school districts for a total of 29 years. The huge class sizes in one district caused me to resign. The increased pressure for performance and paperwork left 0 time for family in the second district. I've been able to find a place closer to balance in my current district and find that funding of our programs and support staff remain within reasonable levels. This was not present in the other 2 districts I worked in." So you have one case here where an educator went through 3 different districts and was able to find one that met the workload balance, that seemed to provide enough support, while the other 2 did not. And the last, an educator reiterated a number of statements, said that they very much asked the Connecticut Education Task Force to visit actual classrooms and see how we function, what we need to do to function better. And asked that you need to talk to teachers who are actually teaching and come in and sit with them for a few days to better understand the situation. So that's a brief overview of the survey and some of the qualitative responses. I aim to make certain that these qualitative responses were representative of the 43 pages of single type response that we got from the respondents. And if you have questions about those exact qualitative sort of open-ended questions, you could reach out to to Ray or to Lou. And also the appendix here has every question that we asked and the responses for all of the questions that the CEA asked. So I'm open to questions if you have any questions about the survey, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, David. Any questions? I think we need to take it in and really analyze it, and we certainly will use it going forward.
Fran?
Yes.
You know, if you look at the last page, page 14, there's that specific question about other comments to the task force. There's 43 pages. That would probably be good for the task force to have, since this is a question specifically related to our work. Is it possible to send that
Yes.
out?
We do have that. This is Lou from CEA. I'll just step in and say that that appendix wasn't finalized at the time that we transmitted the summary over to you. So we'll get that to you as soon as we can.
Great, thank you.
That'll be helpful. Thank you. Thank you both very much. Thank you. Thanks to CEA.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, guys, this is Susan. Can someone give me some information about caseload size? Is it capped at a certain point? Is there statewide, like reckon? And I'm also including resource rooms, like how many, one teacher to how many students? Is there anything set? Does anyone know?
There's no law or regulations in Connecticut. There are in about a dozen states of various forms of caseload limitations. some by statute, some by regulations. I'll,
Can I just make a comment to that though?
yeah,
Is that okay?
It was me. I think a caseload size is relative because you can have a caseload of 5 students who have significant needs and a caseload of 15 students who have moderate needs, right? So I think it's difficult when you look at case size as a number because 15 students with significant needs is much more difficult to manage than 15 students with mild to moderate needs. That's just a qualitative comment that I would like to share.
yeah, I think we're gonna, at some point, we're gonna debate this, a recommendation in this area. But I certainly share the workability concerns with it. Brian?
I was just gonna say, I mean, a comment, and this is just like projection here, but because of the vacancies, teachers in the buildings are asked to cover vacancies, which leads to higher caseloads that aren't actually probably initially assigned. That's not in the data necessarily, but for me, the themes of caseload are coming up within the context of vacancies as well. So just something for the
Right, and that's,
committee to.
were we to draft a proposal, that would be a serious component of it as to if there's a limitation on caseloads and there are vacancies, what do you do in that case?
I think the inequity that exists in Connecticut across the board in terms of funding and all kinds of different things exists here too. In some of our challenged districts, the caseloads are going to be huge. And teachers leave because.
David, I don't know, I don't see the crosstabs here, but do you have anything, is there any way to look at whether teachers from better resource districts have fewer complaints about caseloads than teachers from poorly resourced districts?
We could take a look at, do a crosstab of that. Take a little while because I have to code the resource districts, but it is possible to take a look at.
I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
We can work.
One other thing I want to note is that there was some of the open-ended respondents mentioned that while they had some of the same labels of caseload they had 20 years ago, the increasing needs that the students have made the workload much more challenging. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. That was one of the responses that a couple of teachers had.
And that's something we heard today as well. I guess there's no objective evidence to prove that, but there seems to be widespread perception that there are more students with higher needs today than there were 10 years ago.
Thank you. And thank you all. I'm sure we have plenty here to begin to think about our recommendations at our next meeting, October 1st.
Do you have any additional questions? I'm happy to field them. If not, I do need to step out, but.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you very much. Take care. Thank you for your work. Bye.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Our next meeting is October 1st, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I rely on Dawn for such information.
Hmm?
I rely on Dawn for such information.
I think it's October.
It is, yeah.
And each of the subcommittees are supposed to produce recommendations by then. The eligibility, was it eligibility that produced already?
I
Or
think I
services,
just saw
services.
a notice for their meeting.
Okay.
I sent you our recommendations
You
a couple weeks ago.
For eligibility?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not for services.
Service.
We're meeting Friday.
Okay, for services
That's what I
Friday.
thought.
Okay. Okay.
And funding's met.
Funding is met and the recommendations are being.
Okay. Good.
They'll
Well,
give us
thank you all.
a lot
Is
of meat to deal with.
Yeah. Anything else for today?
Do you want to talk about the session? Sure. So we're having trouble transmitting the flyer. I guess I'm gonna try and respond to that email, Dawn. But the flyer with the sessions is out. They start next week. I know Brian's working on PowerPoint.
Is anybody registered yet?
CPAC holds the registration, so I don't know.
CPAC's not talking.
I don't think
The
Jen
flyer was
specifically
just-
knows.
The flyer was just, finalized and sent out last week.
Yeah, we could probably reach out and get a preliminary count that by the end of the week. You can check in with Jamie.
Good, that would be great.
But you're working on sending it out again, this is
Yeah,
that.
I'm not sure what's going on. Because Andy got it yesterday. You responded to me, so.
I do, in case there's any question, I think, yeah, the mandate for each of us is to send it out to all the people we know.
Yeah, we just
Right.
asked for another copy of it because I can't locate it, so
Right.
I wanted to send it out to everybody.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And
Thank
if
you.
we
I
can
appreciate
attend as
it.
many as possible, I know schedules are crazy, but if you
Okay,
can attend, it would be
of course,
helpful.
we can try.
Okay. Anything else?
Anybody hear anything today that surprised them?
I wouldn't necessarily say surprise, I don't know, I don't know how to react to it, so I'm just gonna leave it at that.
would say maybe colleagues not helping new colleagues.
So I guess one of my
Right.
things is a huge component of student teaching is what they were talking about, right? When that student teacher is in the classroom, they're supposed to learn what case management looks like. They're supposed to get a feeling. And there's a 16-week requirement for student teaching. So I guess that was one of my questions, like, because going into your first day as a special education teacher with no knowledge of what case management entails is a little concerning in that I wonder if we need to structure the student teaching experience to ensure that they're getting that exposure. I guess that would be one of my comments, because that really surprised me. Really surprised me. And, I think paperwork is part of the job. So I guess that's the other thing I'm trying to think of. You go in, all of your schooling to be a special education teacher involves what the paperwork to be a teacher is, right? The evaluation process, the development of those objectives, the analysis. And every day a teacher should be doing that. So I guess those are some things that we need to grapple with is how do we address that the paperwork is one of the things that is really bogging them down, right? Because you can't eliminate the requirement for paperwork because that's what guides your day-to-day practice. So I guess that is just one of the things that I'm grappling with a little bit.
I think it's all the other stuff, the mandated trainings. I literally started the mandated trainings and to do the one for recorder, it takes days and days at the end of your school day. And you're
Hours
like,
and
I'm
hours.
sorry, but I don't like after school. I have this, I do CEA, I'm across the state.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's really hard to be like, it has to be done by this day. It's like, there's gotta be a little more flexibility, people. And knowing, I go into having a brand new student this year, who I knew her, but I'd never had her.
Right.
And I have a PPT in a month, which is supposed to be 2 months away, but the district pushes it up a month. And I have a month to do my transition assessment, look through all her stuff,
Right.
get to know her, along with being a self-contained teacher all day long with my kids who have extreme behavior issues to make sure that they're getting what they need, as well as the other 4 in the class. And making sure my 2 pairs, one is brand new, has now learned the
Right.
system and knows what is expected, and I'm giving her the paper. Like there's a lot more than there was. And even the addition of like what we do at my own school is another step that's not on another special ed teacher, like behavior profiles and a student, individual behavior plan. Like I have to do that as well as, or somebody in the group has to do that, make sure it's right, that maybe somebody else doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, so there's facets all through the state of what other additional things you have to do to make that just one PPT work. You know, the kid has to present.
I didn't hear them complaining so much about the paperwork. I heard them complaining about the time to do the paperwork.
Well, yeah, because you have no time to do it, and then you're getting behind. And if you look like the WFSB, the same idea, even for teachers, it's the amount of paperwork, we just don't have time. And people, like I stay there, I miss my lunch. Yes, I'm a union person. I don't eat, I eat with the kids, just because I know it's better. But at the end of the day, I'm there till 5, 6 o'clock until they kick me out, because that's the only time I can do my work. Other people get to walk away from their jobs. We don't. So there's another piece that people, we know we're doing it, but every single day. And then you're running to a meeting for 5 o'clock, and then I didn't get home until 9 last night, Friday, 12 o'clock, like, it gets a lot when you actually, you're doing it.
Right.
We're doing it,
Absolutely.
Can I jump in on your thing? What I noted, what surprised me was when they said they didn't get breaks. That's a lot in the day, because we have to remember that a general education teacher gets to drop their student off at specials, and that's their time to have lunch or regroup. And paras and special ed teachers a lot of times accompany them to those classes. So I think we need to look at what are the breaks that are required during the day, so people can kind of mentally regroup for 5 minutes, go to the bathroom, eat lunch.
I would think
lot
they
of
have the same planning time as regular ed teachers, right? According to the contract. Right, right. It's
I think- I think on paper, they have breaks and they have a schedule, just like special education teachers have a schedule. But what we're hearing is that it's hard to adhere to those schedules when people are being pulled and there's coverage issues and there's absenteeism and so it's the fidelity of being able to stick to that. I think that's what and for me, I'm struggling with the like chicken and the egg, like what's coming first, which of these, they're also intertwined, that it's hard to tease out where an entry point is. I don't know.
And I think the vacancies maybe add to that,
Well,
right? I mean, you
Oh,
can't.
they definitely add to
Because
it.
I need you to cover this.
Absolutely, yes. The vacancies add to it, the newness of people coming on board, like they were saying, like people jumping into the role and just having to start. And so now you have people that, maybe don't have the time to overlap and mentor like we would have done or know we should do, because we're trying to just cover or ensure safety. And it's really quite challenging.
It is.
I spoke to a Bridgeport brand new DSAP who's never taught in a classroom, right? He has no resources. He has no furniture. He was put in a classroom, DSAP, with special ed students with no chairs, nothing. How is that right? I mean, that's what reality from, you go from this point to that.
Right.
That's what we're dealing with here. How do we help that guy? Help him stay in the profession. Help him be able to teach those kids in a highly urban school. What do we do? So that's really for me, it's a big push, because this school might have resources that's our lowest, that's that school that we can't let fail. I'm not gonna let Bridgeport fail. And he came up and he was unbelievably well-spoken as a young, brand new teacher who never taught. And we give him this classroom. How do we expect him to not fail? And none of those teachers in Bridgeport want to leave. They don't want to leave. They don't want to leave. They love where they work. So what are we going to do? And he's special ed. How do we make sure they don't? That's what breaks my heart every single day.
One of the themes that I heard was going back to the simplicity of relationships matter, and that in the hustle and bustle that we're all facing and the stress and the burnout, we're forgetting that core tenet and that it does matter. So I heard it matters in leadership. I heard it matters in within our own colleagues, like knowing people's names and calling them by their name and having conversations. And same with parents, like have we gone too extreme with not letting parents in at all? And can we find a balance? So I heard that as a theme today that gives me hope.
Relationships, it came back to that over and over and over again. Well, I
That's
know.
why people go into special education, is because that's who they are, right? And if they're missing that piece, then you're missing the reason why you went into the profession to begin with.
Yeah.
And the general education, special education barrier between teachers has always been there. I mean, I've been for almost 30 years now, and it's always been that way. So how do you build that bridge where it's not a us, them, it's a, we're there together? And that goes with resources, because, you know, you have a class of 25 students, you're gonna make sure that they have tables, desks, and chairs, right? So how do you, maybe that's something that we need to really look at as well, right? How do we make sure that there's equality, not equality, but equity in resources? The basic resources.
Right, like your school should have.
So Amy, you were talking about teacher preparation programs and, you know, and the classroom time. Another piece of that, of course, is mentorship. Tell me what mentorship looks like in Wallingford.
What, in my specific district, what it looks like? So we have teams. So when a teacher goes, it's not only we ensure, and this is one of the things that probably a lot of teachers run into, we ensure that they're matched with an actual special education teacher, right? So in the team model that we have right now, you don't necessarily need to be matched with a teacher that's in your same
Content area.
Thank you. It's getting late, your same content area. So we ensure that, but it's also, it's the culture, right? It's the culture that they're on that interview committee. They know that they chose their colleague, and as soon as that colleague's hired, they're already reaching out saying, okay, what do we need to do? And they're getting them the resources and the support. And the administrators are on board with that too. So they're not necessarily on an island. I will tell you the teachers that are on an island and it shows are the teachers in your special programs, because those teachers are on an island. They're not on a grade level team. They do struggle with not having a peer to have a lunch with or to have that collaborative meeting. So that's not necessarily answering your question about a new teacher, but in a school, those teachers that are isolated are those teachers that have those specialized self-contained programs. So, you know, that is something that, and those are the programs that you've got the more difficult students, and your day-to-day job is high stress and high pressure. And like you said, you don't get some of the same, you know, time and so, and those are the teachers that we're losing. Those are the teachers that are losing, that are leaving as soon as they can leave a special ed job and go to a regular ed job, they are. Or a special ed position opens up, they jump right into that special ed position in the district. So you're constantly replacing the teachers in those programs that need stability, right? So how do you support those teachers? And I know we talked about that a little bit a couple of months ago, but those are the teachers that really struggle because they don't have that. I guess we can go back to that word, relationship, right?
And I think a piece, what I heard at my own Board of Ed rep council member group was that we have outgoing, when somebody leaves, we do exit interviews. Negative, it's always negative. You've lost them already, there's nothing you can do. The big thing now is the stay interview. What makes you stay? What are the reasons and why would you stay? You start learning from that so you can put it into place. You can do what you need to do before those people leave. So that's something we might want to look at more. They're doing stuff at CES about that. But that's another thing that nobody's really thought. Why do you stay?
Right.
What makes you stay?
What makes you stay?
And you start taking bit by bit and you start working that out and try to figure out what are the people who have stayed there for 30 years? You know, the para for 5 years. What has made you stay and not leave the profession? So instead of being like, after that, you lost them. You know what I mean? We have to do that, but you've lost them. And you don't get that.
Celebrating and acknowledging the ones who have, like announcing, oh, 15, you know, you've been with us for 15 years or
30.
Right? Like those little things make a difference to people. Yeah. Like, oh, I got an apple. I was here for 15 years.
They
You
took
know?
away,
Like, it makes a big
they
difference.
took away our staff 5 years and they were like, what does that mean to us? That was a big deal. Like, who knew? Like, it was a big deal. And it was a big deal.
The thing is, you can't legislate relationships.
You
right?
can't legislate
can't
relationships. No, not at all.
To your point, though, I mean, in the survey, so 49% of survey respondents are either very satisfied or somewhat satisfied. So
Why?
if we receive the input on, because typically you think if someone's taking the time to fill out the survey, there's issues, but that's encouraging. I mean,
Yeah.
that's glass half full. Something's happening right in those places that we can replicate, or
Well,
at
that's-
least communicate to the districts or the locations that aren't, or
Right.
individuals.
Yeah, that's amazing, yeah, right, that's what we should be looking.
But even beyond that, all those people here today who had lots of complaints, they're still in their jobs.
Yeah.
They're doing
You
it.
heard why at the end.
That's right, unanimously.
That was a quick answer.
Yes, it was.
Yep.
Why do you stay?
Kids.
Yeah.
No thought required.
Also something we can't let just.
No, you can't, you can't.
Well, thank you. That was
Thank
very,
you
that's
all.
very helpful discussion. Let's,
Thank you.
I think we're gonna have some long sessions coming up when we're going over and talking through these things.
Thank you all.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you for hosting, right.
I heard we needed more mandated teaching. Did you hear
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, bye.
that?
Thank you.